I love stories. I love reading them, I love writing them, I love listening to them, and most of all, I love telling them. So today, I'm going to tell you my story. And because I'm the author, I get to be the hero. I'm the hero of this story. Now, as is the hallmark of good stories, it has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. Let's start at the beginning. I came to America from India when I was 7 years old. My grandmother was educated up to the 4th grade. She was married soon thereafter, after 4th grade, and then she had 9 children, 6 of whom survived. She was an all but single mother and supported her family as a seamstress in a village in India. My mother was the first person in her family, man or woman, to go to college. I had an uncommon beginning. Also, another hallmark of good stories is there's always a hardship that has to be overcome, and mine was poverty. My mother once told me she knew exactly how smart rats are. And when I asked her how she knew, she told me that when she and my father were first married, she learned very quickly that she had to put large rocks on top of the food canisters to keep the rats from opening them. So, we were poor. And while we maybe did not have a lot of things, we had a lot of people. We had a community, if you will. A community of very, very strong women. Women that I like to call my aunts. Side note, it was only when I came to America that I realized that the term aunts is actually reserved for someone who's related to you. These women were strong. They were CPAs, MBAs, engineers, doctors, teachers, geographers. My mother, in 1960 Bombay, went to school for 4 years and got a degree in Sanskrit and economics. And then she went to train for 4 more years to become a CPA. Now, if you've ever taken cost accounting, and I have, you know that my mother is one smart cookie. So we maybe did not have a lot of things. We may have been poor in resources, but I was rich in love. I am a daughter, a sister, a wife, and a mother. I'm also an executive, a physician, a caretaker, a friend, and a fixer. But first and foremost, I identify myself as a woman, hopefully a woman of honor. The definition of honor is actually quite simple. It's respect given to someone who's admired. And it seems like it should be really easy to attain until you actually try to do it. I had an uncommon beginning. As I said, I was surrounded by these wonderful women that were my aunts and this awesome woman that was my mother. I had more aunts than you have fingers and toes. My aunts and my mother molded me, shaped me, and made me who I am today. So when I was growing up, the message that I received was that it was more important to be smart and kind. There was never an emphasis placed on my looks because that was not important. When I started high school, I asked my mother if I could wear makeup. Her response, "You want to be beautiful? Go to medical school." And while that might not seem like much of a message, compare that to what we see today. I've seen parents bring in their 12, 13, and 14-year-old girls for nose jobs and Botox. We are judging women, their personalities, their hopes, their dreams, their successes, and their failures on nothing more than a facade, a veneer, a shell, a sham, a lie. And luckily, I was spared of that lie. The middle part of the story is where the conflict is introduced. And that's also when the villain comes in. Now, in good stories, the villain is someone you least suspect. And in this story, our villain is insidious. Let's see if you can figure out who it is. I'm going to give you two scenes from the conflict portion. The first, it was an unexpected snow day, as snow days often are. I'm scrambling to find a place where my son can go because my husband and I both still have to go to work. I call a friend, and this mother says, "Sure, bring him over." I take him over, drop him off. She very generously makes some pancakes. My son loves them, and she asks him, "Does your mother make you pancakes?" And he says, "I don't know if my mom knows how to do that." So when I pick him up, she says, "He really likes pancakes. Do you make those for him?" I completely freak out because now I have to prove that I know how to make pancakes, and indeed I make them well. Ricotta pancakes, crepes, blintzes, all sorts of pancakes. Next scene. I was working and traveling and living life and had failed to notice that a somewhat major kitchen appliance in my home had ceased to function. My dishwasher was broken. I'm on the phone with a male colleague talking about work, and I'm punching every button on the dishwasher. It's not starting. I'm muttering a few choice words, not the least of which is, "I'm a terrible housekeeper." His response, "You're not a housekeeper." And boom, it was like a lightning bolt. Why did I call myself that? Why did I label myself? With all that we are, principals, plumbers, pastors, prime ministers, and yes, even presidents, do we have to be everything all the time? And here, in this scene, the villain really presents. Let's see if you can figure out who it is. For a while, I tried very, very hard to be friends with a group of women that were socially and geographically close to me. I tried to make the pancakes, I tried to shop at the right stores, and I tried to attend the correct functions. Even though those things were foreign and deviant to my true self, why did I do that? Because I wanted nothing more than to fit in. There are entire branches of the social sciences dedicated to the study of why humans need to belong. And I wanted nothing more than to belong to this set of humans. So I tried really hard. Until the day I got a card. The card said, our friendship was not a workable option. Yes, a card, and that was the exact phrase used. And for a while, I was eviscerated because I thought I had failed as a female and as a friend. Fast forward, it's a few weeks later. My family's on vacation in Colorado. We're talking to one of the employees at the hotel, and my son notices that the employee has an accent. My son asks him, "Where are you from?" And the employee says, "I'm from Ethiopia." My son, who's 10 years old at the time, responds with, "Are you from Ethiopia or Eritrea?" And I was so proud of him because we had just finished reading a book about refugees from both of those countries. And I realized that he knew what it meant when someone said, "I'm from Ethiopia." I looked over at my husband, and he said to me, one simple sentence, "Screw the pancakes." Which brings me to this. We are doing our friends, our partners, our sons, our daughters, our colleagues a great and grave disservice when we are doing anything more than being the best version of ourselves. That's all we need to be. It's enough. Here's a statistic for you. Women are twice as likely as men to suffer from depression, and that's accepting physiological reasons. Those are not my words. Those are from the world-famous Mayo Clinic. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because we're subscribing to crazy-making culture? My friends and I coined a term, a stiletto to the eye. It's a visual for how ruthless women can be to one another. 6 years ago, I was in graduate school. I was listening to a professor. She was amazing and inspiring. She had pioneered robotics in healthcare. After the lecture was done, I turned to my classmate and said, "Wow, that suit she's wearing is really ill-fitting." My classmate said to me, "How is that relevant?" And I realized that I had that stiletto in my hand and I was aiming it right for her eye. And with that comment, I put it right back on my foot. Because if you've ever been the victim of a stiletto to the eye, you know exactly how much it hurts. Let's not be misogynists. Because when we are, what happens is instead of inciting honor, what it does is it creates discord and resentment, which spirals into more crazy making discord and resentment. Let's work together instead. My best friend and I love to travel together. She is a terrible driver, and I am perpetually lost. So it's an unspoken agreement that when we're together, I will drive and she will navigate. I think this is a great allegory for life, right? Because we're all going to get to where we need to be. We're all going to get to where we want to go if we work together. Let's remember, we may not all take the same paths, we may not all wind up at the same destination, but if we work together, we will all get to where we want to go. And let's remember, it's okay to be driven, figuratively and literally. The single best determinant of the health of the family is the health of the mother. Now, let's extrapolate from that. What that means is the health of the mother determines the health and well-being of the modern world. Think about that. Equalist, that's the word I chose. My son is an equalist. When people ask him how he feels about his mother traveling so much for work, he's always puzzled because his answer is always, "My father travels for work too." He sees no difference in his parents' responsibilities. Don't you wish we could all do that? My mother's an equalist. In the early 80s, she went to her first day of work. My mother's name is Kasum. On her first day of work, the employer said, "You know, your name's kind of hard to pronounce, and I can't remember it. Is it okay if I call you Kathy?" And here's her response, "Sure, you can call me Kathy if I can call you by an Indian name, because that's easier for me to pronounce and for me to remember." My husband's an equalist. When I decided to go back to graduate school, the question I got asked repeatedly was, "Who's going to take care of your son? How will he do without you?" My husband, very quietly, every time, stood next to me and said, "He has 2 parents." My father sends a daily text to the whole family. And recently, he sent a text that said, I love this, "My goal is to see everyone as pure soul. without the confines of the labels, such as daughter, wife, mother, sister. Isn't that a beautiful thing? What if we could actually see everyone as pure soul? What if, instead of perpetuating a facade, we could really focus on the feelings that people inspire within us? And this is when I realized who the villain in this story really is. I have seen the enemy, and it is us. The third part of the story is the resolution, the denouement. I had to realize that I was so busy seeing what other people wanted me to be that I was blind to who I actually was. There is a concept in Jewish tradition termed Tecumseh, and what it stands for is an act of kindness to fix the world. Remember, I said I'm a fixer? I think most women are fixers, right? My first act of kindness had to be to myself, and I had to realize I didn't need to fix anything in myself. If I had been smart, what I would have realized is I valued very specific things. I valued people who valued diversity, who took care of themselves, who were optimists, people who understood that love is not earned, love is not quid pro quo, and love is not transactional. I should have looked to my father for his openness and optimism, to my mother because she carries herself with honor, to my husband for the logic he provides, and to my son for the innocence with which he sees the world. Here's the challenge. Imagine this: if we treated ourselves and those around us with honor, think of the moral revolution we could cause. If we treated ourselves with respect and those around us with respect, think of the seismic shift in the culture we could create. Remember when I said every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end? Well, that's true. But every great story has a beginning, a middle, and a new beginning. So it's your turn. Create your own story. Write your own story. Create your own new beginning. And create your own moral revolution. Thank you.